Hey, what's up, dudes? It's me, Mr. Airon here, the cool dude here. Welcome back to another video. So today in this history topic, I'm gonna be, since it's, like the Halloween is already getting really close here, and it's soon coming up. I thought today, in this history video, I'm gonna be learning you guys all about together the history of Halloween. Like, we've heard questions like, where did it come from, and like, why do we still celebrate it from today here, and so on, like goes on and so forth here. So before and like basically why we still celebrate it. So before we get into this video, if you guys still haven't yet, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're new. Don't forget to comment and turn on the bell notifications. That way you get notified by every video that I'll be posting in the channel. And yeah, so let's get started then. Alright guys, so the history of Halloween, it basically dates back to the ancient Celts who had lived about 2,000 years ago, mostly in the area what is now Ireland, and also basically probably in England, that this day marked the end of the summer of the harvest and beginning of the dark, cold winter time of the year that was often in association with human death. The Celts believed that one night before the new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead become blurred. On the night of October the 31st, they were celebrated the Samhain, and when it became believed that the ghosts of the dead would return to Earth, and that Celts thought that the presence of the otherworldly spirits for the Druids to make predictions of the future here, which is sometimes the writings in the literature can be sometimes a bit inaccurate here, but for a people entirely dependent on the volatile natural world, these prophecies were an important source of comfort during the long dark winter. And you guys don't know what basically what the for those who still don't know who the Celtic tribe basically is, they're basically more like an ancient tribe here who were also basically in Ireland and what is now modern day England, where they were ancient tribes who basically they hunted and also harvest and in grains in agriculture, and like basically established throughout the first settlements here, and they trucked also the horses with by straw here, and also that they built one of the most prominent structures is Stonehenge, which is basically built around 36,000 BC here, and like basically, but why was this also significant? Also, something with has to do with Halloween. Well, the answer is also like usually that it's also derivates that the Celtic there's a recorded evidence that Celtic tribes had basically often like bring out the food, plants, or wheat or grains here that live a tribute to like basically to many Celtic other villages, and to bring up their and to like basically trade and to trade up with the other Celtic tribes there. So yeah, and that's where kind of like basically the first comes from. So let's move on. By 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of the Celtic tribe. In the course of the 400 years that they ruled the Celtic lands, that two festivals Roman origin were combined with the traditional Celtic celebration of the Samhain. And so, like, basically, this is the Roman conquest, but the Roman conquest was sent back by Ultius Plautius here, but it was then revolted also by then, like, basically, notable prominent figures such as Ceramicus and the Queen Ruri tribe known as Boudica, who they basically a massive revolt, a rebellion against the Roman rule, which both of them were never succeeded, and thus England was then conquered by the Romans here, in which they built, like, basically many, like, libraries, settlements, and also basically also many baths here that you can today you can even visit England, and they're one of their famous baths called in the city of Bath here. And also that the first Feralia of the day that the late October when the Romans traditionally commemorated the passing of the dead. The second was the day to honor the Pomonia, the Roman goddess of the fruit and trees, and the symbol of the Pomonia is the apple, and the incorporation of this celebration into Samhain, and probably explains like why the tradition of bobbing apples is that it's why it's still practiced today on usually on Halloween. All right, so now let's talk about the All Saints Day, which is what happened on May 13th in 609 by Pope Boniface the fourth here, which is dedicated by the Pantheon in Rome in honor to all Christians and Christian martyrs and the Catholic feasts in All Martyrs Day, and established in the Western Church here, which is this is basically marked like after the rule of England after the collapse of like basically the first of the war of the Roman Empire here. And by then, like basically until when the Britain was basically opened into other open invasions, such as the Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, and like basically later also the Vikings that were raided here. And but then Pope the Gregory, but that comes later on. That but before those things, Pope Gregory the Third it later expanded to the festival to include all saints as well as all martyrs, and moved to the observance of the May 13th to November the 1st. And by the and so going through the 19th century, the influence of Christianity had spread into the Celtic lands, and it gradually blended with the and supplemented the other Celtic tribes. And by the year 1000, the church made November the 2nd All Souls Day, which basically means that a day to honor the dead. It's widely believed today that the church was attempting to replace the Celtic festivals of the dead and was with a related church sanctioned holiday. So since that was basically Halloween has basically originated from back into Europe, like in England, so you guys might be questioning, how did like basically, Halloween all the way get to America here? And the answer is like basically it began with like the limited celebrations due to religious beliefs, but Irish and Scottish immigrants in the 19th century popularized the holiday and bringing the traditions such as ghost stories or like pranks and like horror stories and living of the stories of the living and the dead here, and that the celebration of Halloween was extremely limited in the especially in the colonial New England here and of the rigid Protestant belief system here, and that Halloween was more commonly recognized in Maryland in the and also in back into the southern colonies back in the 18th century. And as the beliefs and the customs of different European ethnic groups and American Indians meshed, a distinctly American version of Halloween began to emerge. The first celebrations included such as play parties, where public events held to celebrate the harvest, or neighbors would share stories of the dead or tell each other's fortunes and dance and then sing, or basically have a drink outside, or go about people for trick or treating, or basically which, by the way, and trick or treating is also basically when it came back from originates also back when from also the Celtic tribe, like doing food and and trading with other traditions that I mentioned before. Um, and basically celebrate and have fun, play around with kids and everything, and trick or treating and having a drink and so far, and on celebrating this point of Halloween here. And so colonial Halloween was festivals was also featured of the telling of ghost stories and mischief making of all kinds. By the middle of the 19th century, annual autumn festivals were common, but Halloween was not yet celebrated everywhere in the country. The second half of the 19th century, America was flooded with many new immigrants, such as German, Chinese, Japanese, or Irish, or Jews, or Italians, or many African Americans here. That these new immigrants were especially the millions of Irish who were fleeing from the Irish potato famine. To those who basically don't know what the Irish potato famine is, it was basically that in the 19th century that the Irish people basically they were relied on their food on the potato, which then a disease called the blight here had basically caused and devastated many of the plants of the growth of the potatoes, and they become moldy and really old here, and there were people and many people were then the Irish people were starving to death, and basically they could not provide any food or resources to feed up with their families or their kids here, and many British and not even also with the British politicians even trying to help out or support many of the Irish, and this became like the great, known as the Great Famine or the Irish Potato Famine, mainly because there were millions and 100 millions have been starved to death here, and many had fled to many countries such as the UK or like Canada, USA, and Australia, and it helped to popularize the celebration of the Halloween nationally. Going to the 1920s and to the 1930s, Halloween had become a widely celebrated community focused on holiday, described by different parties, parades, and the rise of tricks as a mischievous pranks, like and sometimes developing into vandalism, like basically like how through toilet paper vandalizing, they basically ruin their houses or like do any mischiefs and like the tricks and like basically the trick of the people and scare them off or like basically trick or treating like delivering little kids candies to each of the neighborhood's houses or like parades or sometimes people go out to parties in different neighborhoods, for example, here that became really popular back then in the US. All right, going on to later into the 1950s in America, that Halloween had evolved into a widespread family-friendly holiday centered on trick-or-treating, house parties, and community events that I mentioned, as well as the post-war boom fueled with consumerism and then making the mass-produced costumes of movie and comic characters popular through the homemade costumes remained common here. So like basically that like going through the 1950s like basically is consumerism is like basically like it's been like basically that people buy and purchase often they're like many goods here and like basically but in case of this and for Halloween like people buy now like Halloween different all the kinds of like different variety of Halloween costumes that can be from like movies, comic books, or like I guess maybe also fair and then Halloween and like and it's so much more and like also Halloween decorations like how you decorate outside of your house like to celebrate for Halloween like such as lights or spider webs or I guess witches on a pile or gravestones or zombie like with hands on the dead floor or something like that and also like events like and like deliver snacks and food for people to entertain and like many the houses and so like basically and like that there's people that enjoyed like they family friendly like basically like many kids that celebrated Halloween for trick-or-treating to meet up at the fun and to the fright the horror of Halloween here to be said which yeah and which made many costumes and also like basically a series of like of many movies back then like say later like the Nightmare on Elm Street or like the Halloween movie or Friday 13 or Child's Play or any of kind of these horror films that can be also made into costumes and comic books and so on and so forth here that they were made back then. And that was pretty much it. So I hope you guys pretty much enjoyed this video, and if you guys did, and if you want to see more history content similar to like this, then what are you waiting for? Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're new, don't forget to comment, and turn on the bell notifications, that way you get notified by every video that I'll be posting in the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. So Mr. Aaron's out. Peace.